invoice date, vendor number, vendor name, department, and amount.
Right, GL distribution and amount. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, she said that she would like to see the whole, GL account code, which will of course include the department. So the first thing we have to do is say, what tables is this? What tables are we going to be looking at here? So
Okay.
I've gone into my data dictionaries and I'm picking the module accounts payable. And I like the table view. That's my preference. So, and it's also sorted alphabetically by table name, So what what do we want to find? We want to look at invoice batches. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for invoice. So here we are. We've got invoice details and invoices. So if you look at Sage, let me just open up Sage real quick so you have something to look at, a reference point for this. So if we're looking at, this is a sample data, so if we're looking at accounts payable, we're looking at an invoice batch, okay? And so just getting to know the database, the information above, so this grid here is always your details, your distribution information. So this is the header information. So that's just something you're going to, want to know.
Yes.
Header information is going to have things like the vendor number, the invoice number, the document date, the fiscal period, any, descriptive information. And, for each invoice, there's going to be one header. For each invoice, there will be at least one detail, but there might be many, many details. So that's the details table, okay?
Okay.
So looking back at our data dictionary, what do we want to see? And this is just something you're going to get to be more familiar with as you work more with the program. So we're looking at invoice details, invoice, and invoices as the header. So if I look at the header table, you can see it's got all that header information like the vendor name, the document number. It doesn't have, or the vendor number, not name. It doesn't have the vendor name, so we need to get that from somewhere else. And you can see this is just all the different header information like the date and all that kind of thing. So if we look at all of that information, so that's our header. So we do want some of the information from that. And then the next thing we're going to want is our GL information. And I happen to know that that's details. So if I scroll down, you can see, once again, linked by the batch entry number and the batch and the entry number. So then you just keep going down and eventually, here's the GL account. And then if you keep going down, eventually we'll find the GL amount. So the first thing we want to do, and when you're getting started, it's sometimes not even a bad idea to write down the field names.
Okay.
So from the details we want to find the GL amount again. Okay, so ID, ID, GLACCT. And then we want to find the amount. So this is the distributed amount. That'll be the amount distributed to each GL line. Yep, so then that's going to be GL distribute. Let's see, so that's going to be AMT, GLDIST. Okay, so those are the two pieces of information we need from the details. Everything else, I think, is going to come from the header. All right, so now we have that as our starting point. Let's actually look at the other fields just so we don't have to keep looking up at them, looking back for them. So we want, so going down, we want to know the document type. So that's important. Let's know if it's a credit note.
Yes.
Right, so 1 equals invoice, 2 equals debit note, 3 equals credit note, 4 equals interest, which I guess you may or may not use. But so we want that. We want to know the ID vendor, of course. And we want to know the document number, I think she said.
Yes.
Yep, document number. So that's going to be, where is that going to be? IDINVC. Want the date, so that's going to be date invoice. And let's see, is there anything else? I think that's everything. And the vendor name we're going to get from the AP vendor table. So this is actually a pretty good example because we're going to be picking from 3 tables. So we've got linking and all that kind of thing. So here's the AP Ven. So this is going to be the vendor name, and I think it's the vend name. So that's actually a field that makes some sense.
Okay.
So we're going to minimize that, and we're going to get out of all this. And we're going to go back to our Crystal report. So we're going to do, I always like the report wizard because it steps us through everything we need.
Okay.
So click on the report wizard. And you're going to pick your database. I always do it from SAM Inc. You can pick it from Agora LLC or AL, whichever. Okay, but Pat 1. So you put in your SQL password, and that is the login for you is ACOPAC, and then the. So you'll always need that to attach to the database.
Okay.
All right. So now once you open that, you'll see. Underneath here, you're going to see the name of the database, which could be, any name, any database that you've opened. So just to find out what the name of the database is, see the SAM Inc. Your database key will always be in the title window you open within Sage. So that's a good thing. But you can really do it from any, you could write a report against Agora LLC or 14 West, but then you can attach it to any database by adding it to the Sage desktop. So we'll talk about that. So anyway, we're going to open, it's always DBO. Those are your database objects. So you always open that, and then here are all the Sage tables for this database. So we know that we want APIBD. That's the invoice details, and APIBH. So here we are, and here we are. We also need AP vendor if we want that vendor name. So these are always listed alphabetically, and so I'm just going to find AP Ven. Okay, so these are the 3 tables I'm pulling from. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I have to tell Sage how this stuff is being linked. So it does the best job it can, which, isn't always right. So you can see in this example, it is pulling the right. So this is the batch and this is the line. So that is actually correct. However, all this audit date stuff, you don't want to ever link to that because it'll just never work. See, Crystal Reports makes its best guess as to what should be linked, and sometimes it's just plain old wrong. Basically, what it does is set, are there any like field names, that are the same in these 2 tables? And there are, but it doesn't matter because they're not going to be the thing you want to link from. So now, what do we want to do? We want to link. The vendor ID is not in the details, it's in the header. So we want to find the vendor ID. And notice, this was basically a design flaw, honestly, when they wrote Sage, when they designed the tables. These names should be consistent throughout the database, but guess what? They're not. So,
they are not, yes.
Yeah, so you just need to know, ID Ven and vendor ID, so we're going to link there. So the order of linking is always from the many to the one, okay? So you want to put the table that has multiple rows in it first. So for instance, you might have 1 detail for each header, but you could also have 25 lines in an AP invoice. So you want to always go from the table that has multiple to the one that as a single. So there's going to be many to one for your details to your header. And then there's going to be many headers, but it's going to link to the one vendor. So this is why we have it, you know, you can get unpredictable results if you don't link properly. So if you say, you know, for instance, that I've got records in, you know, batch records, but I'm only getting maybe like one or something, maybe you've got the linking wrong. So, you know, basically it's just looking, it comes up with a vendor and then finds a transaction. It's like, I found it, so it moves on to the next vendor. So you always want to start, you always want to do your linking that way. And that's an area that people, you know, that can be confusing when you're starting out.
Okay.
So I'm happy with that. I'm going to click next. And now I'm going to tell the system what fields I want. Okay, so here, this is where the data dictionary comes in. So my first field is going to be the vendor ID, and that comes, that comes from the header. So I want ID vend. And now the next thing I want is vendor name. So that's coming from the vendor, AP vendor table. Yep. So now I'm done with that. So what else do I want? I want the vendor number, vendor name. I want the invoice date, but I don't want it formatted. I'm going to give it to you, and I'll show you why we don't want it formatted the way it is. So I've got the date. I want the total amount. So that's going to be amount, functional currency.
Amount.
Yeah, I'm going to, well, remember, we want the total amount plus the distributions, I think. Don't we, or do we?
Yes, we do. Like the
so
amount.
we want to look at, okay, so we want to see these lines, but we also want to see the document total, you know, because there might be, you know, 2 or 3 lines. They might not necessarily be equal. So let's just refresh ourselves on what that field is, because there's a lot of them, especially if you've got multi-currency. So we want to look at invoices again, and we want to look at our total amount. Amount, yeah, we don't want that. We want the grand total. So that's probably, I think you can see there's lots of totals. You have to know which one you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of kind of sometimes, honestly, trial and error. So let's see, where is that number? It's down here, something with FC for functional currency. You can see there are an awful lot. So here we are. Let's see, so functional currency, okay, amount due, okay, so it's amount due TC. So we're going to minimize that here. So we're going to go, I can actually start typing the field names. So I'm just going to type AMTDUE, and you can see it found it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so that's helpful. So we want, that's my, whoops, I didn't mean to double click. Okay, I just screwed that up. So that's all right. Okay, so
AP vendor ID, I think it was.
Yeah, I screwed that up, so I'll have to put that back, but that's okay. So, you know, if you sometimes double clutch, you can screw that up. So, okay, so we're just going to put it back, and then I'm going to just grab that and I'm going to drag it up. So in a way it was good, because then I showed you how to do that. Okay, so this is all my header information. I do want my date. I didn't think I have the date. I got my invoice number. I've got the total amount due. I want my date, and I'm going to show you. We're not actually going to use that field, but I'm pulling it in just to show you why we don't want to use it. Now, do you want the fiscal period, or is just the invoice date sufficient?
Invoice date is sufficient for this one.
Okay. So we've got all the header info. So now we're going to jump into our details. So yeah, so we're going to go to, we wrote down the field name, and again, I'm just going to type AMTGL. There it is.
Distribution.
my distribution, so I'm going to move him over here. And I want the amount, or actually I want the ID. So this is essentially the fields I want, okay? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to hit next. And what do I want to do? Do I want any grouping? So do you want to sort it? Do you want the batch information or not? You don't need the...
No, we don't need a batch for this report.
Okay, all right. So we're not going to really necessarily, well, actually we are. We're going to group it by invoice because...
yes, like group it by invoice for like one vendor. It can group the entire invoice. Okay.
Exactly. So we're not going to do any summaries yet. And I'm just group sorting. We're not really doing that either. So actually, you know what? We probably want to group. Do you want to group by vendor? Sort by vendor, or do you care?
So group by vendor, would that be like?
All of vendor ABC 1, 2, 3 would be together.
Let's try it and I can see how it will look.
Okay. So we'll group. Let's go back. All right, now I'm going to finish, and it's going to give me kind of my first rendition of this report. So it shows it to you in preview. Now let me just show you why we don't like using the raw date field. Because it's ugly, okay? So see how it's numeric. So this is actually 2020. This is May 1st, 2020. Because remember, I'm in sample data and everything's for 2020. Yes. So I really don't like that, but I wanted you to see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a formula. So now I've moved back to design view. I'm going to move some fields. It always centers things up, but I want a little more real estate than that. And look what happened. I got my fields in the wrong order, so I'm going to just move the vendor name. So it's the second field. Name. And we'll clean up the headings as well. And then we've got our date. And then we've got our total amount. Maybe we'll move that over. So these little handles allow you to drag the fields, and it pulls the header as well as the field or any subtotals that you have. So I like using these. And if you accidentally screw up, and to see how I drag that off the grid, you just hit the undo, you know, and it'll put it back, you know. So anytime you're moving stuff around and you screw it up, you will want to use the undo a lot because it's really helpful. Yeah. Really so anyway, so here we are. We've got, I'm going to save this. I save frequently. So I'm going to put this in my Aurora, and this is my AP invoices for specific.
Oh, you can just put AP invoices for HR. That way we'll know it's for HR. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now we've got, all right, so when you group something, like we've grouped it by vendor and we've grouped it by invoice, so you're going to see in your preview, it puts these group headings, you know, and to me that gets really hard to read, so I hide a lot of that stuff. So I'm just going to right-click. So this is my section information. So we've got the report header that only prints on the first page. The page header prints on every page. The group header would be, so our first group, you can see how the little pop-up comes up and it says group header 1 by vendor, okay? Yes. That's going to put that, you know, at each change of vendor. And then group header 2 within each change of vendor is going to put a heading for each change of invoice. So I don't need all that, so I'm going to right-click and I'm going to hide that. And I'm going to hide that, and it shows you that the section is hidden by these little, slashy lines. So now I'm going to look at my report. Well, that's more readable. You can see also some group footer information. So this is the group footer for this particular invoice, okay? So I'm going to now, the next thing I'm going to save it again. So I'm going to clean up my headings now. So I'm just going to double click, and this is just the raw field data name, okay? But, that's not very presentation friendly, so I'm just going to call it vendor number. And then double clicking. This number. We're leaving that one because we're going to actually build a formula for that. So this is GL account, and this is GL amount. Total invoice amount versus the general ledger distribution amount. So those are two different things. Got it, and it's starting to look a little bit better. Yeah. So I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to create a formula for the date. Here. Okay, so I'm going to create a formula, and this formula is basically a function that's built in that will convert a numeric date to a readable date. So I'm going to leave this field here for the moment, and I'm going to click on New. So it's going to be a new formula, and it's going to be called Date, and the formula is PW format date. And now I just typed in that formula, and notice how when I finished typing it in, it turned blue. So let me do that again. See how it's black, and now the blue indicates that it's a recognized function. So that's good. That's, I've got it right. So I'm going to put in a parenthesis, and then what am I format? It's a report field. Okay, it's a field that's in my report. So what is it? It's date invoice, and then end parentheses. When I'm finished, I'm going to click on check. It's going to make sure my syntax is right. Like here's an example. Let's say I forget my parenthesis. If I hit check, it's going to tell you, Sometimes it's really great and it tells you exactly what's wrong. Sometimes it, gives you, it just says something like the remaining text doesn't seem to be part of the formula, and frequently that'll be, paren or something that's missing. But anyway, so I'm going to save and close. Now I'm going to go back to my design. When I'm adding fields, I like to do it in the design view because it's just easier to get it in the right place. So I'm going to delete the date field, but notice there's a space for it. So I'm just going to grab the new date formula, which shows here, and I'm going to move it.
Now, Carol, for the formula, how do you get about knowing what is the formula? How,
Yeah, that's just something you will learn. So if we go back to the formula, I'm going to go back to new. We'll just call this demo. So there are actually functions. If you click on here, functions and operators.
Oh, okay.
So for instance, this arithmetic, add x plus y, it gives you the syntax. So let's just say I wanted my field to look, let's do a field with the fiscal period. Let's just, for fun, let's say I want it to show like 1-2020, to show the fiscal period dash the date. So what I would do in this case is I would say, all right, where's my fiscal? Well, this is actually a nice field because you can kind of tell what it is. So I'm going to double click. So this is the syntax that tells you the table, which is the header and the field. And then I'm going to say, what do I want now? I want a dash. Dash is a text, so I have to put it in quote, so I'm going to do a dash. I'm putting spaces. You don't have to, but it just makes it a little more readable.
Yes.
So what is this going to do? It's going to give me the fiscal period plus a dash plus the fiscal year. I'm going to check my syntax, and it's okay. Oh, okay, so here is my error. Okay, what did I do wrong? Well, I missed a plus. So you can see how easy it is to miss something and how easy it is to kind of look at it and figure it out. So these are, you know, different formulas, ranges, arrays. So we'll talk about arrays when we get to our picking the vendors. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember exactly where that PW format date is. I think it's in here somewhere. But that's just one you will want to write down and remember.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I can't remember where it is in here. You know, maybe it's a type conversion. You know, no. But anyway, you get the idea. That's a formula you're going to want to know and remember. So I'm going to save and close, and just for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to put that in there. So see what it looks like. I just dropped my handle, so I'm hitting Control Z. So now I'm going to just show you. I think I'll rename this actually. Fiscal. Look at it. You can see, you know, that's how it looks. That's how you do it. Do you want that field, or do you want me to take it out?
No, you can take it out.
Okay. So, but I'll leave the formula in there just for the purposes if you ever want to see, you know, how that was done.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've got our GL account, we got our distributed amount. So now we're going to go back and look at this and say, what would make this thing a little more friendly to read? So here, let's see. So look at this. So there's something wrong here because this seems to be weird. It looks like we got the same vendor and the same invoice in a vendor, which doesn't seem possible, honestly. All right, so we probably, okay, so what do you need? Do you need a subtotal by invoice, or I know we need to choose a date range. So you're going to be doing a date range. So anytime you want a report that's going to prompt you for something, okay, you need to create a parameter. And a parameter is where you set up something that's going to be prompting you for data every time you run the reports. We're going to create, we need to create a parameter for a date range. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit New. And what is it going to be? It's going to be called Date Range. And I'm going to remind you that the format needs to be like this.
Okay.
I always do that because in Sage, you know, you can't put this format that we created in our formula because the date, you have to enter it in the way that the raw data is stored. So for things like that, I always prompt people, you know, with a reminder of this is how you need to enter it. So the next thing we need to know, what is the field that we are, you know, asking for? Yeah. So we need to know two things. We need to know the field type and the field name. Okay. So how do I know what the field type is? We want to go back to our data dictionaries. And once again, we're looking at the header, okay, because that's where the stored. So I'm going to find the date invoice, And it's saying it's a date field, but honestly, it's actually a numeric field according to Crystal. So that's a little misleading. So yeah, I don't actually know why they have it written like that, but just put that. That's another thing that you're just going to want to remember or make a note of. It's actually a numeric field. So going back, where is it? It's here. So we want to actually pull up a number field, and then we're going to find. So you have to pick the right table. It's alphabetical. We're going to have to scroll through all of these fields, which are extensive. Now we're going to get, go ahead.
This part you cannot type in for it to drop down, like.
What's that?
You cannot type, like start typing in that space.
Yeah, I don't. Well, let's see. So, yeah, it doesn't really work. You can type the first letter, but you can't start typing like you can with the others. But here's the date invoice. This is what we want. And you know, okay, so this is what we want. And then we need to do a couple more things. So we've got a good prompt. That's great. And but we need to change this. We want to have it say enter range values. We want to set that to true. Okay. Otherwise, it would just give you
just one specific date.
Like give me one invoice date. So we need a range. Okay. I'm going to save this again. Now we have to attach that to a selection. Okay. So a selection, you can access selection by clicking Report, Select Expert, Record, or we can simply click the little button that looks like a filter, okay, because that's what we're going to filter. And then what are we going to filter? We're going to filter the date. So you pick the field, and now we want is equal to, and then we want to pick our parameter, okay? So when you're doing the Select Expert, you've got the option to pick something, a static value, which would always be the same every time you ran the report, or pick a parameter. This parameter showed up in this drop-down because it's attached to this field, okay? So also tells me that I did the parameter correctly because this parameter shows up. So the parameter will show up as a question mark, you know, and then the name of the parameter. Okay, so what else do we want to do? We want to, well, let's just make sure this is working before we do anything else. So we're going to do, so remember we have to do it in a date range, you know, using this format. And since I'm in sample data, I'm going to use 2020 because that's the date of the sample data. So there we go. Just to make sure, and it is working. So we've got, you know, dates, you know, it's including the first. This is good. So we're just making sure that it's picking up the right information, and it is. So that's good. So I'm going to save this again. And now the next question I have for you, do you want a subtotal by the invoice?
No, I think they just need the grand total.
Okay. All right. So let me, all right. So this is the GL. So I want to actually take a look and test this against what I've got. So we've got 100, invoice 100-1. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into Sage. I'm going to enter an invoice and just make sure this is working. So I'm going in. Actually, let me put in the right date. Good heavens. Oh. All right, so I'm just going to create an invoice here. One. And I'm going to call and we'll just call it demo 14 West for $500. I'm going to put a couple lines of distribution. Thing is the stupid tax.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's very irritating. Sample data because it has it set up to calculate tax, which makes me kind of crazy. Dollars. I do a demo, I just sort of force, make it work, but it's easier not to bother with that. So and we're going to refresh the data. This is the refresh button.
Mm-hmm.
The current parameter values, I want the same date range. So let's see. Okay, so demo 14 West. All right, what in the heck is going on? Because that is not the right. These numbers are crazy.
I guess it pulled everything from that batch. Is it?
Well, I don't know what this is because it's pulling the same invoice twice somehow.
Mm-hmm.
See how it's coming up? Okay, that's, oh no, you know what? This is the footer. That's the footer. So this is working. Okay, so see, this is actually the footer. So if we, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a summary by, I'm going to actually use, all right, so yeah, this is working. I'm not losing my mind. That's always good. Yeah, so this equals that, and that's fine. So here's the question for you. Do you want the subtotaling by invoice like this? So this is actually the subtotal of the GL distributions, okay?
Yes.
Whereas this is the total of the invoice. So
can we have like that total to be only one number instead of three lines?
Yeah, what
only
we can
on one line?
Yeah. All right. So what we would do with that,
Oh.
footer.
Yes, that's much better.
Let's align these because I'm very compulsive about my alignment. Because, I mean, it's a little OCD, but also it's such a difference in your presentation. I can't stand turning in a report that just looks crappy,
Yes.
Tighten this up a little bit. Yeah, okay, so that's the total amount. Total invoice. That's
I'm sorry. Maybe under the GL amount we can remove that total so that it's not too confusing. Yes. Yes.
okay. So, as we can also total. I'm just okay. So here, what else would we like to do to make this look better? Let's suppress duplication.
Yes.
Yeah, because see how it repeats. I think that looks kind of. So we're just going to multi-select, and I'm going to just choose suppress if duplicated.
Perfect.
footer field because I think it's really confusing. So basically, at this point, what we're doing is we're just making it look up. I should suppress this one if duplicated. At the field, I'm going to do better. All right, so I think this looks kind
So
of.
that, yeah, it looks like it needs a little space between the vendor number.
Hold this. Right,
Yes.
so what else could we do to make this look better? I'm kind of thinking that maybe
The vendor number, I think we need only just the vendor number one time. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Little invoice.
Yep.
Here's another option. Okay, so I'm going to move this. Whoops, let me do it. I just broke my own rule. I want to use this. Here's the other way we could do this. Suppress this.
Okay.
This one. Sometimes you just got to play with it to get the format. So why is this repeating? Showing two lines.
But that's the only entry that's showing two lines, though.
Yeah. So let's take a look at, I'm going to save my information. I'm going to go back to my page, and I'm going to look in vendor 200. Okay, what invoice number? This is 123456. So I want to look at, see what's going on with that, because that just doesn't look right. And honestly, that's the way to do it. You just sort of look at it, and if it looks weird, you just go back to the database and test it. So let's see, 123456 is, so that's not even the right amount, or maybe it is. So I'm going to open up the document. I want to go back to the original entry. That's not even the right date. Do I have? I mean, it's not even the right amount.
Now, if there was a duplication from one batch to another batch for the same invoice, would it show you, or?
Well, that's actually a good idea. Let's add. I'm going to temporarily flip this to landscape so I can add some information. So page setup. Come on. Page setup. Okay, so, sometimes when things are weird, the best thing to do is just add additional information from the database to see. If I want to look at the batch and I want to look at the line number or the entry number. So I've added those two fields. So this is batch number 19. Let's see. So which one?
So it was in two batches.
Sure is. I wonder if I've got. me just look. I wonder if I have a batch that's not posted. And that's why. So we batch 30 and 31. This is what happens with sample data. So page back to our AP transactions. We want to look at, oh, okay, so this is an error batch, and the reason it's an error batch, yeah, it was duplicated. So I'm actually just, it will pick that stuff up. So now, do you want to know?
So now I'm thinking, yeah, I think we should just put the batch number just in case they see something weird like that.
Yep, I think so. All right, so where would you like the batch number? Would you like it like over on the left, or is it okay on the?
Let's put it before the GL account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go back to my design view. I'm going to clean up. This is batch number. Header and entry number.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to move these out of the way for the moment. I'm going to take my batch. Move that here. I'm going to, let me move it a little further over. I'm going to move my, I'm going to make my
date.
I'm going to move this. I'm going to make the vendor name a little bigger. So grab the little handles and move it.
Okay.
Starting to look better. Let me refresh it. I'm going to leave my original parameters. Yeah, okay, that looks better. All right, is there anything else presentation-wise you would like? Maybe a title. That probably would be helpful. So now I'm just going to insert a text object, which is going to be the title of the report, which is going to be AP, what is this called? Invoices?
Invoices
for HR?
HR, yes, for HR department.
Make this a little bigger. And I'm going to just move the print date over up a little bit. Starting to look like something. Actually, I think I'm going to move my date over here.
Perfect.
Selecting both of these fields, and now I'm going to change to the bottom. So now they're aligned to the bottom. Save it. All right, so now what we need to do, I think we've tested it. Everything looks good. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Fields are wide enough. Given your numbers, I think I'm going to make them a little bigger. select both, just click and shift click, and I'm going to move this over. That's where, you need to sort of think about, in my case, what's my client database like, and, I know it's kind of big, so I want to make sure you don't have weird cutoff numbers. So this looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, so these are my GL distributions. All right, so I'm going to save this, and now I'm going to do the Agora specific stuff. So it's not.
Yeah, we have a report for Ireland that's kind of like due this week.
Right, we're going to do that too. But
Okay.
before I finish this report, actually, let me do one more thing. See how this has decimal points for the batch and the entry? I'm going to. That looks weird, so I'm going to format those two. And I want to format, because they're numeric fields, so I want to just click on Customize and change the decimals to that 1, 0 decimal. That looks a lot better. I'm going to save. Now, she wanted this report to only list specific vendors, okay?
Yes.
So find her email.
The list. So we will, oh, sure. I'm sorry. Let me see. Another report, Genocide DeFalco. Already. So I have a list of vendor number.
Okay, so what we're going to do, the last thing we're going to do to this report, okay, is I want to select the vendor numbers. Now, we're not going to do parameters because this is not going to change, okay? So you do the same thing. It's still a selection formula, but you're going to hard code that selection formula. So I'm going to highlight the vendor now, and I'm going to choose my little filter, Select Expert. And notice how it says ID vendor. That's just makes it a little easier, okay? So ID vendor is what? ID vendor is one of these. So let's see. So we got is one of. And now we're just going to start hard coding the vendor code in. So tell me what they are.
Okay, so we have vendor number 200601.
And I'm just pressing enter. Okay.
Okay, 363915.
Okay.
504261. 541543.
Okay.
562781. 564001.
Okay.
734100.
Okay.
174950. 484865.
Okay.
460501.
Okay.
525060. 104000. 758275. 79143. Let me double check on this one.
Different number of characters.
Yes, that's from fix system. 791443.
443. Okay.
Yeah. And 734100. 631300.
That it?
Yes.
So since you've got, okay, now this is going to cause everything to not to be anything, because of course, remember, I'm pointing at sample data, but that's okay. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to also add the selection formula to the report footer so that you can see what vendor numbers are being selected, because I think that's kind of important. So what we're going to do is this is actually what they call a special field. So let's find.
So now when you added this vendor number, that means the person pulling the report will have to search by vendor number instead of vendor name?
No, what this means is that only those vendor numbers are going to show up. So the data is stored by vendor number, not vendor name.
Okay.
So, so here's what this is going to look like. So at the end, you can see, this is your selection formula, okay? So you can actually see what vendor numbers are included, and that way something else needs to be added. And that's only going to show up on the last page, okay?
Okay.
So we'll just call this, let's make this a little bigger. I'm going to move this down.
So now as vendor are added to the list,
It'll add, you'll have to edit the report. So
the report from here, okay.
For your information than theirs, but I think when you have something like this, I think it's important to have that. So here's what it's going to look like. The end of the report will just look like that.
Okay.
So what happens if you need to add to this report? What you would do is you would open it up in Crystal Reports. I'm going to move this over so that it's even. Actually, I'm not going to do it that way. I'll see about format. So I'm going to save this. So what happens if you need to add another vendor? You know, you're looking at this and you're like, okay, we need vendor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now. So you just go into the record selection formula, which you can access by clicking on the Select Expert button or clicking Report Select Expert Record. And then you pick the tab where your information is, okay? What do I want? The vendor ID. And then you would just simply go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, click Add, and then you're
okay.
Yep. So that's how you would maintain this. That report is done. So I'm going to send to you, which will do. Actually, you know what? While we're talking about this, I'm going to show you. Do you know how to add a Crystal report to your desktop?
Yes.
Page.
Yes. You show me like right-click, new report, and then select it from Crystal Report.
Perfect. Yeah. So you, I'll just email this report to you, and you can put it on the desktop. And just one thing to remember is you want to decide if everyone is going to have access to this report. If not, then you would have to go and log in as each individual who's going to have access to the report and add it to their desktop.
Yes.
So sometimes if it's confidential, you don't want everyone in accounting to have access to it. And of course, you'd have to do this in each database. So if 14 West needed it and Ireland needed it, you would add it in both places.
Okay.
So I will email that report to you when you can do that. So let's look at our next report that's due. About prior postings, which I'm not really sure how we're going to figure that out, but
yeah, the one for Ireland, correct? The one with the euros tax and stuff.
Okay, so this is AP report for VAT amount and vendors. Is that?
Yes.
Alrighty, so that's okay. So the AP report pulling information for VAT and amount and vendors. Okay. Forward more info on that to me that I didn't
Let me see. That was sent from Karen last Friday at 10:51. Let me see if I can get that for you. Karen, 10:51 on the 24th. I just sent it to you.
Okay, great. Hard report for certain vendors, we did that. The Ireland report, once again, we're going to be looking at the same database link for document date description. So let's look at batch. Let's see. This. Once again, we're going to figure out what fields we're looking at. So we're going to look at, okay, so we're going to look at, we want the document number, which is here.
Yes.
We want document date again. We
Mm-hmm.
want the number.
Yes.
Description, which is this field up here.
No, the one down right here. The
That's
one
actually,
in the.
that's the vendor name. Oh, you mean down
No, the
here?
one. Yes, in the GL description.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's GL description, and then net amount tax base. Okay, so this is total amount before tax. So let's look at, let's go back here. So go down. You know, one thing we forgot to do in that other report is we forgot to distinguish whether it was a credit note or a debit or a an invoice.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be important. So we will go back and do that. Actually, let's go back to important. Go back here. So we're going to do, we're going to actually do a formula. So it's going to be type.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a note tables, and the field name is text TRX, so that's transaction type. So I don't want it to say 1, 2, 3, or 4. A transaction type, if it's 1, it's an invoice. If it's 2, it's a debit note, etc. I want it actually IND. If transaction type equals 1, then I want IN. Else, now I'm just going to copy this for types. Okay. I'm just going to change this to 2.
3.
And debit note.
Mm-hmm.
There's my if it's credit note, you know, that's my if then else. So I'm going to check. Good. I'm going to, did you have a question?
Oh, no. I was just.
Move this over. Where do you want it? Do you want it right after the invoice number?
How about, let me see, so GL account before, can I see the preview, please, Carol?
Sure. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. We're not going to have any data, remember. have to enter my SQL.
Okay.
All right, so, I mean, there's nothing to see, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. We remove everything else. So vendor name, vendor name, invoice number.
I would say after.
Between invoice number and date.
We may need to change our. Saved it. I'm going to temporarily remove the vendor selection formula because I want to see how it's handling credit notes. So I am going to report selection. Temporarily remove this.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, copy this. I don't want to type all that mess in again. Which is, where the heck is refresh? Okay, refresh. All right, so let's see. Do we have any credit? Okay, I need to change this to a minus. Or, do I need to change this to a minus so that it shows credits as negatives? Would that be?
Can we do parentheses?
Yeah, but so what we're going to do is we're going to actually create two new formulas. So this is going to be GL amount. So
total invoice. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we want. So if type, so we're going to say if type is the new thing. So this is an array. So if type is in, and we're going to do this. 1, 2, or 4. Okay, because 1 equals invoice, 2 equals debit, 4 equals interest. Yep. And we want this, else. Shortcuts. So we'll change this if this equals
3.
Same thing for total amount. Oh. Okay, we're going to go to our report fields again. Total amount.
Mm-hmm.
Check our syntax, everything looks fine. Now we're going to go back to our design view and we're going to see change this so that it says press if duplicated. Better.
Mm-hmm.
Credit note. Okay, so why the heck is that?
I think we need to refresh it maybe.
You know what I did? I didn't do this right. I need to actually edit my report. I forgot my minus.
Oh.
It'll do exactly what you tell it to do.
I see.
We've got our minus. So now what we want to do is we want to just change the format of these two objects. So we want to go to our number, and we want it to look like this. There you go. There's yep. So yeah, these are the things you just got to kind of be aware of. The system determines the whether it's an adds or detracts or deducts from the vendor overall balance based on invoice type. It doesn't store it as a negative number. So that's just something we need to remember. So now I'm going to go put my vendor information back into my selection form. Here. Did great. So there's all my vendors.
Okay.
All right. Now, when you're building a report, you wouldn't have to do that because you're pointing at your own data, and it would actually give you some results. So, righty. So now going back to our Ireland. So we want vendor number description. So a lot of the information in this report is duplicated in this new report. It's also duplicated in this original report. So whenever I have a report that uses the same information, I'm all about, you know, saving myself work. So what we're going to do is we're going to file, save as, and I always I always start with the module. So it's AP. So what do we want? What is this going to be called? AP invoices and tax for Ireland or something like that? Or
maybe AP Ireland tax report, because it looks like everything mostly is like the tax that they are looking for.
Save that. We're going to change the name here. Right. So a lot of the information is in the report. A lot of it isn't. So, okay. So what is she going to want to pull this by? Is it going to be?
I'm assuming it would be vendor name.
Yep, vendor ID. Everything's by vendor ID. So we want vendor ID and vendor name. Document number, that. We want the document date. We want all this information is the same.
Yeah.
The date. We want the document type. Now our net amount is going to be, that information is going to be different. We do want the total invoice amount. They don't really need their GL information, do they?
No.
All right, so we want the total invoice amount. That's great. GL information. I think the batch and entry is good to have. Okay, so we want to change the selection. Are you going to want a date range or a fiscal period range? Like
I think yes, they will need a date range.
Leave that the same. We're not choosing for specific vendors, so we're going to delete this tab. Okay. And now I'll hit and I'm going to save it. So I've got, this is a good starting point, and we've got like 90% of the info. So what we need now is we need the net amount, tax base, and the tax amount. Okay, so what we do is we're going to go back to our data dictionaries and figure out what fields we need. So I did. So all right. So what we want to look at is, excuse me. I'm also going to look at. So there's my document total. Oh, she does need the GL detail stuff because she wants to see, doesn't she? So we should.
I think it would be good because if she's doing the tax base per coding, then she will need that GL detail to know how much was sent to specific coding. I'm assuming.
What the description, I'm looking at the field, the screenshots here that are in this email. So I'm looking here. I don't see, well, I see the, okay, they do want the base, but that is also, like it looks like she just needs the tax base and the tax amount. I don't see, let's see, so what description is she looking at? I'm not seeing, she doesn't have this circled. So I'm just wanting this number, the tax base and the tax amount. That's kind of how I read this. I don't see any interest in GL details. I'm seeing probably the tax, maybe the tax authority, the tax base, and the total amount. What do you think? And I don't know what description she's looking for here because I don't see any fields circled.
So let's see. So the net amount tax base. So that's the net amount tax base.
And here, tax base and tax amount. And then I guess total amount. The tax base and tax amount.
So I think the tax base and tax amount is the distribution net of tax.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah. I don't need anything. I think we just need the stuff on this tab, not on, I don't think this part is relevant at all. Okay, so
and then the document amount, yes.
Right, we got that from the header. So let's see what we want here. So let's go back to our data dictionaries. And let's see, so documents, so let's see, got to figure out what we're looking at here. So, okay, so tax reporting amount.
We will need the currency code since this one is in euros.
Yep, currency code. So functional base. With tax, this is just crazy. I wish we had Crystal reports on your computer so we could immediately test this. We'll be able to do that though. So, all right. For taxes, distributed total. All right. So, okay, here we go. I think it's tax base 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then tax amount 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's what you want. So do you ever have multiple lines here?
Yes, they will have multiple line entries, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so we're going to want.
But for taxes, it will be only one line though. But then again, hold on, let me see something.
GL distribution, I mean. So do you see how this has 2 lines of taxes, or have that?
Yes. So they have different tax percentage in Ireland.
Yeah,
I think it's
so
2
whoever,
or 3 of them.
okay, and you might have 2 or 3 of those lines in one invoice?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, all right, so
I'm trying
screenshot.
to get into their, let me see if I can get into their database or something while you're, searching over
I want
there.
to say, I mean, I can give you all 5. It's not a problem. Already.
So I see Ireland VAT has only one.
Okay, so you don't ever see multiple rows. So if I grab line 1, that'll be sufficient.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, we can always change it if we need to. So we're going to grab, so the fields we want, we've got all the fields. We're also going to want, let's see, so tax base 1. So that's going to be base tax 1. And then we're going to want tax class 1, I guess. And tax amount tax 1.
So they will, I'm sorry, Carol,
Mm-hmm.
they will have 2 kind of taxes. They will have an input VAT and an output VAT.
So would that be one line on the document? Is it going to be sometimes it's this one and the other times it's that one? Or is it sometimes both? That's what I'm trying to get at here.
That I will have to ask them to be sure.
Right. I mean, I could give you both fields. I can give you, 1 and 2, because this is for each line. You can have up to 5 lines of taxes on each end.
Well, how about let's do the 2 right now, and when we send them the report, they can see if that's what they really wanted.
That's fine. Okay, so we want code tax 1. Right. So what we're going to do is minimize that and minimize that. All right, and now we're going to take this grand total and move it way over into this report. So what we're also going to do is page setup. I want to see if I can play with my margin. Are they going to export this to Excel? I think that's what she said.
Yes.
Okay, well then I can make this legal landscape. So I'm going to do page setup. This is going to give me more real estate, and I need that. So, because we've got quite a few fields that we're going to be adding here. A little bit. And now we are going to go into our fields database. And we're going to get this from the header, okay? So we are going to ask for what? We are going to ask for all of this here. So we are going to do, we want the tax authority. And then we're going to base. Later. That adds up. That's nice. Back and make these a little wider. That's just codes. That's all right, I think.
Yeah, it's good that it's centered.
What's that?
No, I say it looks centered.
It looks what?
Centered.
Centered, okay. We want the fields to kind of touch each other. The reason for that is because when you export to Excel, what'll happen if they're not really touching, you'll get like these weird little columns in the middle, and it's just a pain. Definitely something to avoid. All right, so that's all of the information for Tax Authority 1. I'm going to save it. I'm going to keep adding fields. So here's my Code Tax 2. Oops, I want to go to the design view. And I'm going to center it like we did the other one. And this is going to be Tax Authority 2. It looks like I got a typo in there. There we go. Okay. So if they have kinds of taxes, you know, it'll show, like, for instance, maybe, you know, let's GST and PST. You might actually have had 2 lines, and then this is your amount tax. Okay, so all right, so you can see in this case, we've got state, you know, in this example, you know, the sample data, good example, because here's one that has 2 lines. So we've got state, tax base for state, and then tax amount, tax authority for county, and tax amount. And so that's good, okay. And then let's just tighten this up a little bit. And since you're exporting to Excel, we actually don't want to see a footer, because otherwise you're going to get all weird double space.
Yes.
Avoid that. So we're not. You know, this brings me to another point. So I'm going to view this. I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to zoom. And the reason why, because it's easier to get it really formatted nicely, because then I can really see where this ends and the next. Tighten this up a little bit. And what I want to do is I want these to just butt up against the field in front of it. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Again, that's not so important if you're not exporting to Excel, but if you are, it makes it a lot easier. These overlap a little bit, so that's going to make for an ugly export. So what we want to do is this one, so now it's up against. See, they're no longer overlapping. Good. And now we're just going to move this guy right over. Because what would happen is when they exported it, they get a lot of weird. So we'll leave this. save it and preview it. So that looks better. That looks like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yes.
Yep. So
now for them, for the tax authority one, it will not say state. It's different.
Right. It's going to say whatever it says in your database.
Okay.
All right. So if you look at vendor 1200 in my database, so I'll show you what it's pulling from. Well, I'll show you in the invoice what it's pulling from. So we're looking at, here, we're looking at batch 19, entry 1. So I'll show you what that looks like. So batch 19, entry 1. That. Okay, so here it is. Looking at the tax, this is their authority, okay? So now this is the name of it, but this is actually coming from the code, okay? So, and that is stored, let's see, in the vendor. Show the name.
Invoicing.
Yeah, it shows the name there too. Okay, see how it's this is the code. So I mean, I can give you the description if you want it. I'd have to add another table. Would you prefer that, or do you think the code is sufficient?
I would let me just send them the information first.
Okay,
and see if
yeah.
that, because they might not need all the columns. So,
right.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's what would happen. You know, just so you know, I want you to know where this info is coming from. So if I look at tax, tax authorities,
yes.
Okay, so I'm going to look at county. So this is the code, and then this is county tax, and then we've got, okay, we don't have state tax. So it's the code that's coming across, and that's, you know, in tax authorities. So if they found, you know, gee, I really, you know, I don't, you know, I mean, hopefully if it says VAT, that's going to be pretty, oh, we forgot to put the currency, actually.
Yes, it's the currencies.
Yeah.
Yes, so it looks like the tax authority is input VAT and output VAT. Right.
So it's going to be whatever codes they use. So let's look at our database table, and hopefully currency is something that we can easily access here. All right, so let's see.
Currency code.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yes, it's right before, it's code CURN, is it?
Code CURN, yeah, where do you see that? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, so we're going to add that to our report. And, you know, how about, is it okay to put it at the end, or do you want it inside here somewhere? Where would you like it?
We can put it at the end, right after the total amount. Code CURN.
There it is.
Right.
Code. Space, which is great. Whoops. Undo. Wow.
Perfect.
So those will email you that report as well. And, oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't change this to make it a negative.
Oh.
We probably want to do that, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to, okay, so we're going to do, okay, we don't, space 1. We're going to actually name. Copy this because I can use this for all of the other formulas. So we want one. So what is this? Base 1. So we want tax base 1.
Yes.
And then we will, I don't know if you can, yeah, you can. So we'll say tax base. Pop that in. Put that here. 2. Tax 2. Tax amount.
I think we did that. Isn't that the same you did, or?
Yep. I grabbed the wrong field.
Tax base.
Base. It. Base. Save, and then we have one last one. All right, so now guess what? We get to delete all these fields. Hide. Backspace 2. Oops. Undo. And then tax amount 2.
And it shows.
Yep, okay, now let me just fix my formatting. Right, I'm multi-selecting, I'm formatting objects, I'm going to number. And I want
Perfect.
save, and there you go. So that's that report. Okay, so prompt them for a date, and that's basically it. So, all right, so I'll email that. That looks pretty close to what we need. Now,
Yes.
is there a third one?
Yes, there is a third one, which will be a transaction report list.
Find that email.
Let me see. Karen, find another report. third report, and I'm going to forward that to you.
Got it, actually. Third report on Karen's list.
Wish list.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see. Oh God, prior period postings. That's going to be.
So I will forward you a snapshot of what we are looking at.
Okay. Now let's see, to track GL posting sequence number at our financial. Oh.
Okay, so I just said third on wish list.
Yeah. Got it.
So pretty much they want a report that will reflect that. And
what am I looking at here?
So like they will want a report where they can just like search by the actual date that the report was created, the batch was created.
Okay, so she's talking about prior period postings.
Yes. So say we would like to know from January what was posted.
From January, what was posted?
Yes, like prior date.
Back to accounts once they've been reconciled. Happens a lot. Reverse. Here's what you need to do. What needs to happen is when you finish a period, you need to go into your fiscal calendar and lock it. So we're done with January. You just lock the column, and then no one can actually post in that column.
Okay.
What would happen is if they try to, it would throw it into an error batch.
Yeah. But
so
we
anyway,
have so many. Yeah, we have so many people that post on a daily basis. So if we lock that, it will prevent them from posting, and it will create error batch. Then we'll have to go in and
yeah. So basically,
that period.
I'm just trying to figure out what you're trying to extract and how I'm, wanting to do it. So for instance, you want to know for fiscal period 1 what was posted after a certain date. Is that what you're looking? I'm just not clear on what you're asking.
Yes. It looks like we want a report that will track anything that was posted prior to today.
Okay. All right. So we want to go to the GL post. Prior period. So we want to go to the general ledger. We want to go to our tables, and we want to go to GL post. GL post, I just happen to know that's the name of the field. So posted transactions. So journal date. I don't know how we're going to find this.
So posting SQL, what would you
posting SQL? Let's open up a batch, and let's open up general ledger, and I'll show you. Okay, so let's see. Where's that email you sent me? Okay, so here's the posting sequence.
Yeah.
And then batch and entry. They're, and posted sequence just rolls forward. Okay, so posting sequence, you post, and then the next posting sequence, it just rolls up in increments by 1. So let's see. I'm just not sure how I'm going to get this info. Let's see. Maybe we have to do it by batches. Let's see. GL post is going to give me what I need because I mean, audit
Yeah, I think that's
date.
what they would like to be able to search by a range of batches from the date it was created, like January 1st to January 31st.
Okay. Posted transactions. Journal. So just like your AP, you've got journal headers and journal details. So batch ID, fiscal year. Again, that's the entry date. Got account, general ledger, source currency, source type, posting sequence, journal date. That's just the journal entry number, you know, whether it's from AP or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Number, is there a posting date? I don't know if there is. Rate date we don't care about. The document date. So what the heck is
So the posting sequence number is one of the things that I think we will need.
Posting sequence number is definitely cool, but I'm just trying to find. I guess we're gonna have to play with this because
Okay.
I'm not honestly sure how we're gonna get
Journal
exactly.
date, no. Header, ledger, fiscal year, fiscal period, no credit, posting date. Entered by? Is it entered by? Sorry, I saw something say entered by.
Yeah, that's in the header, but that's the person, like the login ID, you know.
Oh.
That's
Oh, okay.
Right. So let's see. So batch control, that might be helpful.
Date created.
Yeah.
So the date the batch was created, correct?
Correct. That might be useful.
I think that's what they wanted, the actual date of the batch created.
Okay, so what we need is we need the batch control file, and we need the GL post.
Yes.
File. Okay, and what fields? So you need to know the batch date. Okay, so all right, so we need. All right, so let's dive into Crystal Reports. This is half the thing. It's just figuring out what, you know, honestly, the biggest challenge is just figuring out what the heck do people want and how the heck are we going to get it, you know? Yeah. So that's where, I mean, you know, that's where it gets tricky. So we're going to go into the report wizard. We're going to use sample data because that's what I always use. Go. All right, so and the database object, and we're just like GLB, there's my batch control file, and then I want
GL post.
Okay, and now I'm going to hit next. Now, we don't want this audit date stuff. None of this is of any use. So we're just going to actually, none of the links are right, so I'm going to clear all of them.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is I want, let me think about this. I want to go from the GL post back to the batch control. Go to batch ID, and that's really it. That's really our only link. Okay. Great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say next. And what do we want? What fields do we want? Do we basically want a listing?
Yes. So we
Okay.
will want the GL post.
Basically, this information here, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So what, I'm just going to move this to my other screen so I can look at it. And all right. So what we're going to do is we want, what do we want? We want the fiscal period.
Posting sequence.
Posting, let's see, we want, well, I'm going in order of
Oh,
how,
okay. I'm sorry.
okay, we want the journal date, which we're going to turn into a formula. But I'm adding the field just to give me a placeholder, basically. You want
Okay.
the description, journal description. Now, would you like this to be a big, wide report that we do on landscape and you can port out to Excel if you want? Or do you want like a 2-line report the way it is in this?
I don't think they will need it into Excel.
Okay, so we'll leave the reference off for now.
Okay.
Posting sequence. And we're going to, let's see, batch creation date next, I think. Table, batch create date, date create. All right. We want the batch entry. Will be a formula. So I'll leave that off. Now, do you need the debits and the credits and all that crap? Or do you want just the amount?
Yes. Yes, we will need the debit and credit.
I mean, but do you need it in separate columns? Like,
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it'd be good to have it in separate column.
okay. Now, the balance, that's really going to be difficult to do.
Oh.
So I would recommend we don't even try, because honestly, getting the balance is going to be something we would need to get from Henry because it's beyond my skill set. So
Okay.
the question is, can you live without it? Can it be a
Yes,
net
we
change?
can. Yes, we can do it right now like it is, and if they need something else, then I can ask you. You know.
Yeah, basically you have to bring the opening balance from another table, and it's tried to do it, and it was a disaster. So I'm like, that's a Henry job. That's a really not as straightforward as you think. Because remember, this is just the GL transactions. This doesn't have opening balance or ending balance. It just has the transactions. So that's like, beyond me. So, all right, so let's see. So what we want is a date create, and then we'll do the debits and the credits. That'll be something else. So I'm just going to hit finish for now. Move. We're going to just drop this over here. Whoops.
So you told me the amount would be under Henry's.
No, the balance would be,
The
I
balance.
give you your debits and your credits and your net change, but I really can't do opening balance.
Okay.
It was a colossal failure, so I know my limitations, and that would definitely be one of them. So this is going to be description. Okay, so I'm going to create my date, actually. So I'm going to do a formula. That's going to be JE date. It's going to be PW format. Watch it turn blue. And that's that. And I guess I'm going to save that, and I'm going to create another formula. Date. short. Grab it from the batch. Here. So where would you like the creation date? Like right, do you want like fiscal period, year period, and then
Creation date? Yes.
That's the creation batch date.
Mm-hmm.
Journal entry date. Got our description. We need to center those. All right, now we'll save it. We're going to call it GL batches or GL transactions.
GL transaction report listing. Sorry, they gave me some report listing, yes.
That doesn't have to be in the title, but I think the file name, I like my file names to be really descriptive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to create a batch entry formula. Now, let me think about this. Actually, this is kind of a thinker because the batch is a numeric field. So let's see, batch. Show you this, and I'm going to show you there's going to be a problem with this formula, and I'm going to show it to you.
Plus.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's not too bad. Yeah, that's actually okay. I can live with that. It's just we've got a lot of leading zeros. Now, the posting sequence, notice it has decimals. I'm going to center this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's butting up against. So I'm going to format.
Into.
Okay, I'm going to format my field. I'm going to customize. I'm going to get rid of my decimals. Like that. That looks better. Okay, batch entry, I can live with that. I mean, it does have leading zeros. I could strip them out if you wanted. Are you okay with that format?
It should be good to read.
I think it's okay.
Yes.
I mean, we could strip out the zeros, but I could tell you it's kind of a pain.
But then if we have like 2 digits, it will still read the 2 digits after the batch number dash. If
well,
you remove the zeros.
Yeah, you've got the leading zeros. And the thing I kind of like about it is it lines it up nicely, you know.
Yes.
So it's not like all, you know, ragged, you know, the edges.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, so now we're going to do some debits and credits. So we are going to say, we're going to call it debits. Okay. And we are going to find our transaction
amount.
Yep, so if transaction amount is greater than 0, then transaction amount, else 0. All right, so that's that. We're going to save that. And now we're going to create a new one. Copy that. And we're going to make it less than 0. Now we're going to go back to we're going to make this landscape because we're running out of space here.
Mm-hmm.
File on my machine because I think I've got this saved to my local hard drive that my Crystal Reports is hosted. So I think that's why. All right, so I'm going to drop my debits in. Actually, let's see if there's anything else I want before I do that. So I think we want the reference, and I think we have room for it.
The description. Oh no.
Yeah, there's the description, but we haven't added the reference yet. I think we might be able to squeeze that in rather than on a second line. So let's move over. Go to our database, to GL Post. And I happen to know the name of the field. Well, actually, I know. Yeah, it's Journal Detail Reference. So I'm going to pop it in. Change. Because sometimes you will crash the program and then you have to do a lot of things. Up in my credits. Change as a subtotal. Change my mind on that, and you'll see why. Drag fields around, they can do some bizarre things. All righty, so now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to, let's see, so what do I want to group by? I want to group by account. First grouping is going to be, yeah, by account. So insert subtotal, insert summary. I'm going to insert a group, and my group is going to be by
GL Post.
We don't have the account code in there. That's pathetic. Whoops. Yeah, that's kind of important. Actually, the way the report works is they do the GL account in the header. So it's not in the body of the report. So I think I'll do that too. Summary, I'm going to insert a group. I'm going to go back to the GL post table. So I have to go to the other table because I'm summarizing on a report that I have not yet put in my yeah, great, account ID. I've not yet put it in my account, my report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Summary, and now we've got the group, so I can put that in here. Net.
Change. Plus.
That's stored as a plus and a minus. Okay, so this is showing it as a minus. For display purposes, we probably don't want it to show as a minus. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So I'm going to edit my formula. Change that. Now, my net change formula should now be minus. I just want that in my summary area.
Mm-hmm.
Change by account. Here. So we're going to format our, have our, make it bold. So let's find one that has, let's page forward a little bit just so you can see what it looks like if you've got an account with debits and credits. So here you've got this, and then your net. And that looks like it's working. So that's great.
Okay.
Change for account now. You probably want it to subtotal by fiscal, don't you?
Um.
Because right now it's
I'm thinking if we should subtotal by a period, since it's gonna be a search by period.
right. Okay. So, and you'll probably just do this for 1 year, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like by month. Like,
okay, great.
Yes.
We're going to create some parameters. So what we want to do is fiscal year. I always remind people how it's formatted.
Mm-hmm.
So what is this? I think it's a string.
String.
So this is we're going to scroll down. Here. Awesome. Now we're going to do another one. So it's going to do period.
Period, yes.
Digits, that's how it's stored. So you want to make sure people know that's what they just enter a 1 or something, it won't, ask for, not necessarily what you mean to ask for. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to highlight the year. Election. So fiscal year is the parameter fiscal year. That's the account number. We probably should put the account name in this header. Don't you agree? What account name it is? Do you want
The account name?
the account name?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, whether it's cash or accounts payable or whatever.
Yes.
I would too. So, all right, let's do our fiscal period. We'll finish our filtering here. Parameter, fiscal period. And so we're just going to go 05 in it, so that's good. Better. I'm going to suppress it. Duplicated just makes for a nicer presentation, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that kind of makes it. I just think that's more readable.
So for the create date, can we do a range, like if they want to just see?
Yep. Yep. So, all right, we'll do another create date range. Number field, another thing you just have to know.
Yeah.
And so it's what? It's the create date.
Create date. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Scroll down, and we're going to enter range values. Yeah.
Yes.
I want everything that was dated. Create date, like, date is greater than or equal to create date. Oh, I know one.
At least, or at least. Do we have an option for at least?
Well, at least would be greater than or equal to.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Want a range between A and B, or do you just want it to be greater than? Probably greater than or equal to.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. So what we want to do is go into our filter, and it's going to be what? It's going to be create date, which is, where is it? It's not the formula. I don't want the formula. It's got to be the actual field. Okay, so it's greater than or equal to, and then your parameter. Date create. Okay, it is a number. Date create. On. so I want to filter off that. There it is. I don't know why it was coming up before. Maybe I had the wrong field or something. So is greater than or equal to. I'm going to just say 2020 05 15, I guess. I'm going to delete this field.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. Formula. Formula. Oh, that doesn't really tell me anything.
Mm-mm.
I've done this before, but let's see if it'll work. I honestly have no idea if it's going to let me do it. Change my prompt. So create date greater this greater than or equal to, so you know exactly what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, what you're doing. So, all right. So I will just drop this. Should be able to do this. Sure, there's a way to do it. It's just beyond me. All right, so we'll just format it. Format field. We're going to customize. We don't want any decimals, and we don't want any commas. Greater than.
Oh, equal to.
There we go. So that way you'll know when you're printing your book what it is. I'm going to grab this field. I'm just going to add it to this one.
Mm-hmm. Transaction. Yep.
Where is my, here we go. So that's just showing you what you're looking at. Just
Mm-hmm.
do you want that on every page, or do you just want it on the page header or report header?
The report header will be sufficient, I think.
That's what I thought, you know. I mean, do you need that repeating on every page? So,
Yes.
pretty this up a little bit. We're going to do some borders. We're going to do a single.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Now, see, that's how you make it start to look. That's how you get more presentation. Now I'm selecting all these. See how this isn't quite lined up, the net change credits? That drives me crazy, so I'm going to highlight all the fields and align them to bottom, so that looks better. So do you think that gives you what you need?
For me, yes, but like I say, I will show the report to the person that will be working more with it.
Right, and if we need to tweak it, of course, we certainly can.
Yes.
Yeah, this will give you a starting point. Oh, let's add the GL name. I think we wanted to do that. So we didn't add that table to this report. You can see the only tables we've got is the batch control and the GL post. So we're going to go back to the general ledger, to the report, and we're going to say database expert. We're going back to our database expert. We're going to go back to our SAM Inc. database objects, and GL AMF, I think, is the table we confirm that. Get to know these frequently used tables as you work with this. So GL accounts is GL AMF. All right.
Yes.
So
Create account infrastructure. Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that table, and we're going to make sure we're linking properly. So notice we've got all that audit date stuff, which we never links to that ever, ever, ever.
Okay.
And the reason why is because the audit date stamp, those are just time and date stamp fields that are updated every time you access the database. So if you go in and change the name of an account or do something, it's going to refresh the audit date. It's never going to tie out to the audit date, time, user, etc., to the GL post, because the post never gets edited. It's stamped and then it's posted, and that's the end of it. So you never link these. All these fields are present in just about every single table in the database, but they never are going to link properly to each other. So that's just an FYI. So I want to link from GL post to the GL account. So I'm going to make this one a little smaller just so that I can see what I'm doing a little better. So we want to go to the GL account. So here's the account ID. And look at that. That actually is the same field name. All right, so now that's going to allow me to put the account information in. So now I'm just going to hit OK. I'm leaving my parameters the same. Now, since we're using the GLAMF, we've got some options that we don't have if we were using the raw GL post. So I actually don't want the GL account ID. I want the formatted account. So that's going to put your dashes in for your departments and stuff. So I'm going to go back to the design, and I'm going to change my heading information. I'm going to take the account formatted. I'm going to put my account description here. Right-click on them and make sure they're aligning to the bottom. And they weren't quite. I think that'll probably be sufficient. Let's see how it looks. Now, would you like to see like a line, like an underline underneath there that would, or do you think that?
I think that looks okay.
One thing I am going to do, so you remember how I combined these two fields here? I'm going to do that same thing with the account. So I'm going to make temporary lighter. See how that looks. Operate with me, and it's not. Shoot. Should actually, well, I'm not going to worry about that. Save it and preview it. And there you go. What I could do is we could put totals. I mean, do you want any label that says totals for account 120 or anything like that, or do you want it good enough? Because I can put a label in the subtotal.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a text field in here, and it's going to say number, and then I'm going to put a space, and then I'm going to make this wide. A whole lot of room here. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to grab that account formatted account ID, and I'm going to just drag this into this field and see how it's adding. It's like combining the two fields, and that way, you know, it's always lined up really nicely. And I can actually. What do you think?
Yep, it looks good.
Narrower so that my lines are kind of broken up. All right, so those are your 3 reports, and I will email them all to you and save them. I think you know where to, save them wherever you want, wherever makes sense. And server, and then when you put the shortcut, make sure you use the UNC number. So instead of like P:\/ you want to use / Neptune 3 / AAS / whatever, because if the drive mapping isn't consistent between one user and another, then the other user wouldn't be able to actually read.
Okay.
Heidi, so I will email them to you, and hopefully helpful.
Hopefully all of them are good.
Yeah, and eventually, someday you're going to, I'm going to actually, when I get off the phone, follow up on, has that crystal reports been sent? And then
I think they are mailing it, so we should be receiving it sometime this week.
Okay. And and then we'll get that installed on your computer, and then we can just do one of these together next time.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and then so that way you can keep learning.
Yes.
All righty. Have a great day. I will email these to you as soon as we get off, and I look forward to our next adventure.
Alrighty. And you're gonna do that just the same as you did the YouTube also?
Yes, I will. Yep.
Alrighty.